Hi, I'm Anna Loza. I'm here with Michele Tremblay and really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you, Michele, for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let me know, what are you up to? Where are you? What's going on for you?
What I'm up to? Well, right now I'm in the middle of a bunch of projects. Um, I'm in the middle of a very large project. I was hospitalized. I was diagnosed about a year and a half ago with leukemia. And when I was initially diagnosed, I spent 28 days in the hospital for my first round of treatment. And when I was in the hospital, across the room from my room, or outside, so I was looking out the window, across the street from my room was a very big blank wall. And so now I'm in the process of designing a mural for that wall so that other patients who spend, usually it's 30 days, a minimum of 30 days for the treatment that I got, have something to look at besides a big empty concrete wall. So right now, that's what I'm doing. That's sort of my big project, is getting that designed. And then I'm going through, I live in Philadelphia, so there's a big program in Philadelphia that sponsors a lot of murals. And hopefully that will be done in the fall. So that's my big project right now.
That's so amazing. Wow, what a journey. So, have you always been an artist?
Yes, I went to art school. And then when I was a senior, one of my professors kept saying, I got my degree in painting. And she kept saying, what do you think you're going to do for a job? Which, of course, in art school, no one talks to you about, like, the concept that you actually have to earn a living. And I sort of didn't really think about beyond tomorrow, you know. And so she had a friend who was an interior designer, but she had a side business. Now, you have to remember, this is a long time ago. This is, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like 35 or 40 years ago, a long time ago. So her friend had this business, and it was before you could buy flowers in grocery stores like you can now, where she bought flowers wholesale and she packaged them, and she had a bunch of customers who would sign up on a monthly basis, and she would deliver fresh flowers once a week to their house, so they would have flowers for the weekend. And it was a nice service because you didn't have to go to a flower shop. So back then, the only place to buy flowers was in an actual flower shop. So I started that business locally where I was living, and I probably ended up with about 35 or 40 customers. And this will tell you how long ago it was. So my weekly bill was $4.50 for a bunch of flowers.
Mm.
Every Thursday, so they would have them Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. You know, they would be really fresh for the weekend. That was sort of the idea. So I sort of moved into being a floral designer because from delivering just fresh cut flowers, people kept asking me to do arrangements for them. And eventually it got to, will you do flowers for my daughter's bridal shower, which was then quickly followed by, will you do my daughter's wedding flowers? And of course, I went to art school. So when you go to art school, you just leave thinking, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. So I said yes to everything. And that was quite a trial, but I did it. And then I had a full-time job. So I did it on my day off. My day off was Thursday. And then I figured, you know, if people are going to keep asking me to do this, I better like go and figure out how to really do floral design. So I left my job. I was working at a very wonderful women's clothing store. And the most wonderful thing about it, they had the most beautiful clothes, but I got to buy everything at cost, which was tremendous. So it was literally 50% off of everything that was in the store was what I paid for anything. So it was hard to walk away from that. But I then got a job with, at the time in Philadelphia, was the biggest florist, and they're still a really big florist. So I worked for them for 2 years, still keeping up my business on the side. I still kept my day off as Thursday. And, you know, I learned a lot of stuff. I mean, I learned really how to handle flowers. I mean, because before I was just operating from books and, you know, trial and error. Mm-hmm. And so then, and the other great thing was that this flower shop was so big that they were able to get the most beautiful, the most exotic flowers. So I really got a really good education from them. And then I left there and I continued my flower business. I got married while I was working there, and worked freelance. And I just worked for a lot of people. You know, I either had my own jobs, but there's this whole community, and I'm sure I don't do that anymore, but in Philadelphia, where all these freelance floral designers and party planners and event planners hire each other out. So I worked as casual labor for other people when they would have a big event. And then I would hire them to work as casual labor for me when I had a big event. So I did that for a long time. And then I guess I was about 10 years into that business. And then I met a fellow working on a job. And he came into my business. He was also a floral designer. But he had moved down from New York to Philadelphia to work for a business that did Christmas installations in shopping malls. Mm. So I met him and he said, next year you and I are going to do that together. He was 10 years younger than me. And we did. So within my business, I then had a Christmas decorating business, which was really fun. And so all those big 24-foot trees you see when you go into shopping malls, like I did that for about 25 years. Mm. And then finally, you know, after doing it for years and years, and I have 3 kids and, you know, juggling everything around my kids, I just thought, you know, like I just was tired of it. It really started to feel like manual labor. And unfortunately, I didn't really have any good business mentors to say to me, you know, if you build up a really good business and a really good clientele, that you can sell your business. I had no idea of that. Like my father was a doctor. My mother was a nurse. She died when I was in college. But I didn't really have anyone to sort of tell me that. So I didn't really cultivate my business in a way that would make it sellable when I decided to not do it anymore. But anyway, I stopped doing that probably about 10 years ago or 11 years ago, and was sort of trying to figure out. In the meantime, I had done a lot of artwork in between, you know, sort of as I was going along. And of course, in our business, especially our Christmas business, we built a lot of props. And we marketed ourselves as we designed and built everything ourselves. So I built tons of stuff out of paper, and my partner would build things out of wood. I would design them, or he would just, you know, we both worked on it, but he did the wood stuff. I did all of the fabric work and a lot of the paper stuff that we built. So when I stopped doing my flower business and the Christmas business, you know, I was just online one day and I saw something out of paper and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give that a try. And I started making things out of paper. And then I decided that I would write a book, which I did, which I self-published, and I sold about 12 copies, but of how to decorate your Christmas tree or your house for Christmas with a package of cardstock from Staples. Mm. And I did that with the intention of, I wanted to self-publish it to see if anyone was interested. And then I was hoping to approach a publisher. And sort of, I mean, I had a connection to a publisher out in San Francisco, but the person that I heard from said, you know, they like evergreen products, not seasonal. So I sort of said, well, you know, let me revisit it and maybe I'll make it like how to decorate your dorm room or something. Because I had just rescaled things, you know. So I had taken things that you could make small and I made them big, and things that you could make big and made them small. And in that process, I made, so I had done paper flowers. And of course, I had a long history with flowers. So I decided I thought it would be really cool for, you know, for a girl's dorm room to have 4 big flowers, sort of like an Andy Warhol thing. So I made this big flower. It was about 3 feet round in diameter. And I put it up on the wall, and it was like I had never seen it before in my life. And it just made my body tingle. I mean, I get tingles now when I tell you about it. It overwhelmed me so much. And it just touched me in a way like nothing ever. And then I became frantic. Like, I have to do this again and again and again. And I started making these flowers, and they were tacked up all over my house. Like, I just had them everywhere. And I met a friend for lunch. She was moving to France, And she said, oh, I want to know what you're doing now. So we're at lunch and I'm telling her about these flowers. And I must have turned into like this crazy woman, because she said, as soon as we were done lunch, she said, we have to go to your house right now. I want to see these flowers. So she came over to my house and she said, I'm taking you to my friend's shop. They belong in my friend's shop. So we drove to another part of the city, and her friend was super busy, and I knew her friend. We had all sent our kids to the same school, but I didn't really know her well. I knew her to say hello to her. And I was pretty shy about, she said, oh, what are you doing, Michelle? And we sort of whispered under my breath, I'm doing these flowers, and they were all made out of paper. And so then I didn't hear from her. My friend moved to France. And so I called the woman who had the shop, and I thought, instead of saying, do you want to sell my flowers? I'll just take my computer down with all my pictures on it and get her feedback, because she had a home furnishing store. So I called her, and she said, I think I called her like on a Thursday. She said, fine, call me on Monday. I can't talk to you now. I'm really busy. So I called her on Monday just to make an appointment to see her. She said, oh, no, I'm too busy. I can't talk. And she hung up. So I thought, oh man, like she just doesn't want to be bothered with me. But she said then I found out through the grapevine that she was moving her shop from one part of the city to another part of the city where I had lived when we first got married. So I thought, I'll just wander around there and see when she opens her shop, and I'll go in. Never saw the shop. One day I get an email. She sends me an email, and the email just says, call me, Janus, right? So I called her, and she said, can you have a show ready this was a Thursday. Can you have a show ready to be installed next Friday? And I had 35 flowers, big flowers. I said, yeah, I think I can do that. So that's how I got started. So I do paper sculpture primarily now. And I do painting as well, but that sort of was my rebirth into art, was doing these large scale sculptures of flowers. And so that was sort of launched me back into the art world. And, it's been going pretty well since then. I mean, I've had a lot of really good opportunities. I was obviously interrupted. I didn't plan on being sick, and that sort of took me out of the game for almost a year. But anyway, that's sort of how I got into it. And that's a long answer to your simple question of, were you always an artist? I'm sorry.
That's wonderful. Oh my gosh, I love this journey. So, wow. Okay. So I want to hear more about this mural that you're going to do, because that sounds like it's going to be painted, right?
It's a combination of painting and sculpture.
Wow.
And the exciting thing for me is when I was in the hospital, so I thought I had like a really bad cold, and then my husband had the flu, and he got confirmed that he had the flu. So I was coughing. And finally I said, all right, I went to the place, the doctor's office with him. And they said, if you don't have a fever, then you just have a cold. So I didn't pursue, getting meds, because they won't give you meds for just a cold, of course. And finally I got a fever, and I went, and they said, well, you didn't get here in time to take Tamiflu, which is what they give you. So just go home and it will go away. Just wait a week, just stay in bed, rest, blah, blah, blah. So I did that. And I felt like I was sort of getting better. And then I got sick again, like sort of the whole thing started again. And by the end of the week, I went back and I had an x-ray, and they couldn't read the x-ray. And the long and short of it is, when they did blood work, I found out I had leukemia. And I went from being, I was definitely sick, but I could walk my dogs and things like that, And I went from that to being taken to the hospital in an ambulance, not with the lights on, but they weren't letting me walk because my blood counts were so bad that if I fell and hit my head, they said I would have bled to death. So I got into the hospital, and, I don't even know how this happened, but I went from being like awake, like I am now, coughing a lot, to like 3 weeks of being semi-conscious. But I remember when I was in the hospital thinking, this place is so dreary. And it wasn't the hospital itself and the nurses, everything were wonderful, but there was just something so bad about being on the oncology floor and, the overall feeling of it. And I kept thinking to myself, I've got to do something for these people. Like, I've got to give them some artwork. And every day I'd think of like, It's got to be for the patients. No, God, it must be terrible to work in here. It's got to be for the nurses. Oh my God, if I was a doctor, I'd never want to come in here. It's got to be for the doctors, you know? And so when this opportunity to do the mural came along, it's awesome because everyone will see it. So all of those people that I was thinking of, like, this is what I can do for them. I mean, I can't make their life better in any other way that I can imagine than adding something to it to make their day look better, or to, you know, just what art does for people.
I just got chills when you said that.
Yeah, that's what's exciting to me, is that, you know, and the interesting thing about it is it starts on a third story level. So from the street, you'll be able to see it from certain angles.
Wow.
But 9 floors of the hospital that face that street will be able to see it. So all the patients that are on that one side of the hospital will be able to see it.
Okay, so it's on an outside building where the windows of the hospital face it. Wow, okay.
So Philadelphia, I don't know if you know this, but we have more murals than any other city in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, you know, I mean, there's tons of murals here. But this one, of course, is so important to me because it's going to serve that community, I hope. So that's sort of my big thing, is that I really want to get my community. I just want those people who were me to look outside and, you know, just for, even if it's a fleeting moment, to just be uplifted, you know, because it's really grim. You know, when you get that diagnosis, it doesn't feel good. I mean, for me, it was like, how the heck did this happen? You know, I've been just going along, minding my own business, living my life, and bam, you know, I'm in the hospital and I've got this terrible version of cancer, you know? So, and I've been very lucky. I've had good treatment and stuff. But I just know how it feels. And the other thing that's so interesting is that when you're in the hospital, now I was a floral designer for almost 40 years, you're not allowed to have fresh flowers because the water can, it can grow bacteria and mold, and that's very dangerous. Like I actually had a very bad case of pneumonia that was caused by mold. So I got delivered I think I got 6 bouquets of flowers that I never saw. I mean, the nurses would come in and say, oh, too bad, somebody just brought you flowers, but you're not allowed to have them. And I thought, this is just nuts, you know, like floral designer, you know, I do these paper sculptures and I'm not allowed near any flowers. So my mural is going to be all flowers, of course, so that when people look out, they can get outside, but they can't get in their room. So that's really, you know, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's not complicated. There's no like deep meaning to it. I think flowers in general sort of touch something in us that's very primal. But in terms of me designing this, it's really strictly about bringing that little bit of joy, or, you know, prolonged joy. I mean, if somebody has 20 minutes to gaze out the window, then they have something to gaze at besides looking at the people walking on the street, which is what they want to be doing. Trust me, you know. So that's sort of where it all came from, and right now that's really my focus.
Wow, that's so powerful, and I thank you for doing that work. And that's such an incredible journey. Like you're saying that you're a floral designer and you're not allowed to have flowers. What I find really interesting in your story and your journey is that you were making flowers, you were putting together flowers for a bridal shower, for a wedding, and so these are moments in life where there's kind of a celebration. And it's, you know, so flowers in general, we think of that as a celebration, and now you get to bring all that energy, all those moments that you witnessed of the joy of life, and just pour your heart in that way into a really challenging experience. So it's like, bringing the medicine of joy and reverie into this time now. It's just, wow, like what a package of a life. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. I never looked at it that way, but I appreciate I appreciate your analysis, because that is an interesting thing. And I hope that I bring that to it. You know, I mean, it's, you know, it's a really interesting thing. Like, I don't ever want to do flower arrangements again for people. I don't always, I mean, I rarely have flowers in my house anymore. I used to have them all the time, but I still love flowers. And I love, one of the things that I really love in the city, people have, window boxes and, containers and stuff. But as you walk around the city, a lot of times seeds will get dropped and they'll fall into sidewalk crevices, and you'll see like pansies will come up, or marigolds will come up in the summer. And I mean that's what I love, like flower. And the thing about nature that I love, and it's part of this idea of nature, is that nature really wants to live. It wants to thrive. And it's interesting to see that when you see like this little tiny bit of soil and this little tiny seed get together, and somehow that seed manages to grow and to thrive in that almost non-existent soil that's there. So, I think the way that I appreciate flowers now more than when I was doing floral design is sort of flowers in nature as you see them growing. I don't really have a garden where I live. I've struggled with that, and it's just, and I'm not allowed to be out in the garden now, so that's fine. But I really enjoy the efforts that other people make, and just seeing the beauty of the flowers and watching them unfold. And even when they're dying, they're so beautiful. I mean, there's just everything about it is so beautiful. So it's sort of like really you just observe that whole cycle of life. I know, it's very special.
Yeah. I love that, because I feel like to overcome something as challenging and as cancer is, and so many of us know someone who's been affected or have been affected ourselves, it really does require that little bit of soil for that seed of the intention to live and to thrive and to continue to be there. I'm sure you can speak to that.
Well, I think that I think it's really interesting, and I think it's, when you look at nature, you understand that nature really supports life. And I mean, in terms of myself, I feel very positive about my income, but my outcome, as I move forward. I mean, I have, and it's the other thing that's really interesting is, of course, my kids talk about this with me, is that and my dad was a doctor. Both of my parents are deceased, but my dad was a doctor. My mother was a nurse. My older brother is a medical writer. My younger brother is a cardiologist. I mean, I've got a lot of medical people in my family. And I've done a lot of stuff with doctors, been treated for various things. But I guess in the last 15 or so years, I sort of took this viewpoint, especially when I had my kids growing up, sort of buying organic food and taking care of ourselves and our bodies, that people don't take enough, people don't take enough responsibility for their own health. And so I was always reading labels, and we're not having this, Starburst, was one of my favorite candies. And then my kids are reading the labels, and it says, Mom, what is it? Hydrogenated oil, Mom, which that was a huge no-no for me. So we just had to stop eating them. I mean, that was sort of how we went through life. And excuse me, I'm going to just turn my phone off. My son is in France. He's calling from France, but I'll talk to him when we're finished. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, so I was the person who didn't want to I always said to my kids, it's better to invest in good food, because if you're going to pay, you're either going to pay for good food or you're going to pay the doctor someday. I didn't really want to take meds. And so when I got diagnosed, I was so sick, with the pneumonia, that I didn't think that I would live. And I was sort of forced to do the chemo. Like I said to the doctors, why do I have to? Because they wouldn't treat the pneumonia till I started the chemo. And they explained to me, your immune system is not working now. If we can give you drugs, but they're not going to work. Your immune system is not going to support you getting well. So you're just going to continuously be sick. And we can't stop that pneumonia from spreading if if, the drugs aren't working. But I would have been the person who would have said, you know what, I'm going to try green juicing. I'm going to try all this other stuff first. Because, a lot of times you read about people who get diagnosed and they say, when you read enough about it, there's sort of two schools of thinking. One is like, get in there and fix it right now. And then there's another school that says, you know what, cancer doesn't move that fast, most cancers. Like, you do have time to sort of study and decide what you want to do. Like, do you want to do this treatment or do you want to do that treatment? What do you want to do? Like, all of that was taken away from me because I was just so sick. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, doing something that I wouldn't have done otherwise. But I think that, there's something about us and all living things that nature wants to support and wants life to continue. And so I just think, for me, I think I might have lost track from your question, but that is something that I've really have experienced firsthand. I mean, I've observed it with flowers, as I described to you. If you look at my Facebook post, you'll see pictures of, pansies or petunias popping up from the sidewalks and stuff like that. But I am now the petunia.
Yes.
So anyway, I don't know. It teaches you a lot of things. I can't say that I would wish this on myself. I certainly wouldn't wish it on myself. But I've learned a lot. I mean, there's huge lessons that come to you from this. And there's a lot of good that comes from it. It seems crazy to say that, but there is. I mean, I think that and I've been really lucky. My body has been really strong. I mean, I did take good care of myself. So I think my body has been really strong in dealing with the treatments and stuff. I don't have any other medical conditions that, that they're not constantly trying to fix this. And, oh, by the way, you can't take these meds because you're taking these. I don't have any of those issues. So I've been very lucky that way. So I think, sort of the organic, taking care of myself actually helped me. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of good. I can't say I'd wish it on anybody, but it really does put things into like a really clear perspective for you, about what you need to do. I mean, the other thought I had was my absolute first thought was, this is how I'm going to die. Like, I think, everyone sort of nobody wants to think about that. But, as you get older, you just wonder, like, people die in all different kinds of ways. Oh, I guess this is how I'm going to die. And then my next thought was, holy shit, I haven't finished my work on earth yet. Like, I can't die yet. I'm not done what I was sent here to do. And I know that for certain. And so I think once I sort of decided that, I really got a hold of that mentally. Then that's what I have to do, is to just keep myself going so that I can do the work that I was sent here to do. And that's really what my focus is, and that's the artwork. So it all sort of came back to that.
That's so incredible.
So it's, it's just like, it's honestly, it's not a lesson I would wish on anybody. So just learn it from me. You don't have to learn it on your own. Like I say to my kids, you can make your own mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Whoever hears this, learn it from me. Don't learn it on your own. Make your own mistakes, Mm-hmm. So I think that's what, and I think this thing about like, you read about people like on social media, everybody's putting their best life. And I did not tell people on social media for a long time that I was sick. Like someone like Chris Carr, who, she had someone follow her and all that. My journey, I mean, Chris Carr is a very pretty woman, and I was very pretty. I mean, I lost my hair twice. I now am taking steroids. So my face doesn't look like this at all. If you saw me, once I get off the meds, I'll look very different. That's a hard thing. But I think, this idea, you sort of you figure out that I can't afford to take the time to care what somebody else really thinks. there's just not enough time. There just isn't, you know? And I mean, the fact is that, you know, I was lucky in that, you know, I got to the hospital. There were doctors there who understood what treatment I needed. You know, I took the step and signed the paper so that I could be treated. You know, my body responded well to the treatment. You know, I was able to come home. I had a double cord bone marrow transplant. So, I mean, I've had a lot of treatment, but I've been really good. Like, my body has been really responding well. I mean, I passed a terrible car accident on Sunday. Those people weren't as lucky as me. You know, 2 people died in this very bad car accident. So none of us know, you know, that it turns so fast, that turn on a dime. So that today, I mean, you just can't afford to care. You know, you have to do what you have to do to bring out whatever it is you're meant to bring to this world, and when you leave this world better than when you showed up. And you just can't afford to let other people stop you from doing that by what they think or what they say or the looks they give you or whatever. And the other thing too, I think that a lot of people don't get is that so many people are so self-absorbed, they sort of will make a nasty, if they're inclined to make a nasty comment, they're probably not going to spend that much time on you, because most people are so self-absorbed, they occasionally look away from themselves. But, you know, a lot of people are pretty much about themselves. So you can sort of not even worry about a big part of the population, you know? So anyway.
I love that perspective that you just shared, that if someone's inclined to make a nasty comment, what I heard is like they'll probably won't stay with you for long. They're just going to pop in, make that comment, and they're on to their next self thing. Yeah. That's interesting because, you know, we'll take that so personally and kind of dwell on it.
Right. And it'll sit, and it's like, you know, it'll sit in your head and you can think about it. Like, I know I've read about other people who, you know, they'll get, you know, if they put something out in the world, just say they send a newsletter out, they'll get 50 great responses and 2 negative ones. And the ones they can't forget are the negative ones. They can't think of the positive ones. And one of the things that I have found myself doing, and I have to do this because, you know, like, I'm getting a physical reaction to the meds that I'm taking now. So I can say to myself, like, I can either dwell on that, or I can say, you know what, here's a great thing. Like 3 months ago, I couldn't walk up the stairs by myself. Like, I had to pull myself up with all my strength to get up the stairs. Now I can almost run up the stairs. So, like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm not going to stop and think about this other thing that I think is going to resolve itself. Like, today, it's not making me happy, but here's what is making me happy today. Here's what I can do today that I couldn't do 3 months ago. I mean, this whole thing is nuts that's happened to me. You know, it's just, and it's unpredictable. So it's not like, you know, the doctor can't tell me, Michelle, this is what's going to happen, because it's different for everyone, just like life is different for everyone. You know, you can't tell. I mean, like, if I think, are you a coach?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you know that the answer for everyone is not the same answer, you know, and even if it seems like from the outside, the circumstances seem the same, like my boyfriend broke up with me or whatever, you know, my kid ran away, whatever it is, the answer is never the same for 2 people. And, you know, so I just think, you know, you have that choice. Like, am I going to think about, you know, I'm not happy with this drug that they've given me today that I'm taking now that's making this thing happen to me. Or I am happy that all those other drugs made it so that I can now run up the steps. That's a great thing. You know, like, I feel more like myself, you know, because I was like, you know, I have 3 sons. I mean, believe me, kicking soccer balls, playing basketball, I did all of that. And always felt like I was going to always continue to do that and be capable of doing it. I mean, my kids are grown now, so they're not exactly asking me on a regular basis to go out and shoot hoops with them. But you know, I always, in my mind, like, I was always going to be able to, like, on a dime, be able to do that, you know. And the last year, not so much. So, you know, I mean, I think you just have to make a choice. and those choices are hard. I mean, some days it sucks, things suck, and you have to look really hard to make a good choice. Like, what is good about today? But the really good thing is that you're vertical. That's the good thing about today.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, I really want to honor you because, what I'm hearing is that you're aware of the challenges and you're looking towards the wins and the gratitude. So it's kind of like, if you turn towards the challenges and you just kind of, okay, like keep on bringing yourself to what gives you energy, gives you more zest for life, gives you kind of an eye towards a future that you're reaching for and claiming and wanting.
Mm-hmm.
That's so crucial. I mean, to me, as a healer, as a coach, to me, that is the piece that if someone has that, I've seen that over and over, then healing it's in the bag.
Yeah.
Like, that is what's the key piece, the lock and key for it all.
Yeah, it is. And, it's very interesting because it doesn't mean that you don't have really bad times. You don't have dark times. I mean, definitely, when I first was diagnosed and I've spoken to my doc. Now I switched hospitals for a number of reasons, but when I went to my current doctor, I told him, I'm not going to go on the internet. I'm not going to do any research. Like, whatever you tell me about this disease is what I'm going to know. Like, my kids, I have 3 sons. They're super smart. They did a ton of research. When I was first diagnosed, God help those doctors, because they asked them each every day. I mean, literally, I had 6 or 7 doctors in my room every day, and they were in for up to an hour to an hour and a half of questions from my kids. Like, they'd ask me questions, and I'm like, I can barely, first of all, I lost my voice the first time I was in the hospital. I could barely lift my head up off the pillow. I mean, all I could think of was like, I had dumb questions like, can't even think of, like, when am I going to, when can I use my voice again? I mean, important, but not like in the grand scheme of things in terms of my diagnosis, it didn't matter, like when you talk again or not, like, you're dealing with cancer and all I could, so I wasn't asking sort of the deep, hard questions. My kids were. But when I went to the doctor that did the transplant, I told him, I'm not going to go. I mean, I know I can terrify myself if I do research on the internet. I'll lose sleep over that. And I don't want to do that. Like, I don't think that's going to help me heal. There's some information that I know this is extremely serious. It's one of the worst cancers that you can get. I know that. There's a lot about it that is bad that I just know from general knowledge. Don't tell me, I said to him specifically, do not tell me, percentages of how many people survive of this age. And please don't tell me that. That's information that I don't need to know, because I know myself and I know the power of my thinking, and I know that I can make it go either way. And with that information, I could make it go negative really fast. So I just said, you know what? Tell me what I need to know. And the rest, I won't, I'm not going to go there. But, I belong to a group on Facebook that's other people who've had leukemia. And there's a lot of dark, most of it is light, not light, but most of it is 75% is positive, but the 25% that isn't is very frightening.
Yeah.
I sort of have a hard time with that. Like, I don't really like to interact with that group too much, because they're giving me the information I told the doctor I didn't want. It's like, I don't want to hear that. Like, I can only hear what I can hear, which is I want to do what I do to get myself to wellness. That's it. I'm not interested in statistics. I'm not interested in the bad news. I'm just not. I know every time I go to the doctor that I have my own news. That's the news that I want. I don't want, I certainly don't wish any ill on anyone else, but for me, that's not helping me. I need to hear I need to sort of look at my own situation and assess the, like I've said before, what's working, and hold on to that, and let the doctor work with me. Now, when I go see him, I say things to him like, and it's funny, one of the things that happened, so I've ended up having one of the meds I'm taking caused my blood sugar to go off. And so I ended up having to start using insulin, which is, a bummer, definitely a bummer. And my insulin was too high, and he was sort of like, I'm not happy with this. I'm going to send you to an endocrinologist. So I said, okay. But then I came home and I thought, you know what? And I said, what about diet? And he said, no, diet's not going to help. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. Only because I'm not like a natural diabetic. This was triggered by medication. But I came home and I downloaded a book off of the internet written by another MD about how to, manage your type 2 diabetes with diet. So then when I had my next visit with him, I had brought my blood sugars down myself. And he said, oh, did you get to the endocrinologist? I said, no, it's all me. I did this with my diet. So, I want to work with him, and I want to help the treatment that he's giving me, which I'm very happy to do. But I definitely have dark moments, but I definitely try really hard to steer clear of them, and not steer clear of them, but that information.
Yeah.
Because, as everyone knows. If you look at anything, just look at the political world, all the statistics are skewed all over the place to satisfy whatever argument whoever is making the argument wants to make. And the same can happen in medicine. You can look at statistics and make them look positive or negative. So I don't know who's feeding me that stuff. So I'm not going to participate in it. I'm going to participate.
Good for you.
I can't. I can't afford to. I have too much to lose.
Yeah.
Honestly, for anyone, even if I don't end up thriving past this disease and it really is the end of me, I don't want to waste 3 days or 5 days or 3 weeks worrying about something that I can't change. It just doesn't serve me at all. So if it doesn't serve me, I'm not doing it. I'm just not going to do it,
That's incredible. Yeah?
It's very hard to resist that because it's, as it's at everybody's fingertips. I can find out. I can read the really bad stuff if I want to. But I'm not, I just don't let myself. So.
Do you feel like there's a book as part of your next artistic step?
I don't know. It's funny because I didn't keep a journal. And I sort of wish I had, like the part of me that loves the internet and stuff. I think, God, I should have been like Chris Carr. I should have been keeping a journal and taking pictures of myself when I look so bad. And and it's so funny. My sons will say to me, Mom, do you remember when you said this in the hospital? I have no recollection of so many things that I said. So I don't even know if I certainly can give an overview like I did to you. And the day-to-day, my kids can tell you, and I definitely had, I remember saying to the nurse, the first hospital I was in, I'm never going home, am I? And she said, oh yeah, you're going home, honey. I said, I just don't see it. I was so sick. And what was happening was I'd have 2 good days and then I'd have a really bad day. And where I just was in a fog all day. Or whatever, something would happen and one of my blood numbers would go off and, the doctors would get all concerned and, then, it ticks off everyone around you. My family's all buzzing and, and I know I don't feel right. And so I remember those days, but I remember some specific things, the things I took, some of those thoughts about helping people. I remember looking out the window and seeing people walking down the street and calling them the ungrateful ones because they don't know how lucky they are. I was them 2 weeks ago, just walking down the street, minding my own business. And here I am, my hair is falling out, it's my hair is falling out. I couldn't eat. I lost my voice. I could barely stand. They didn't want me to go into the bathroom. They were afraid I was going to fall and hit and hurt myself and bleed to death. It was serious. So those are the things that I remember, that sort of those big impression things. I don't remember the day-to-day thoughts, and there was a lot of stuff going on. I had 3 different surgeries while I was in and, there was just a lot of stuff going on.
So tell me how it happened with this mural, because that seems almost like a miracle of your intention and your desire. So how did you find out that there was a mural right across the way up for work?
It wasn't. So a friend of mine, she's a really good friend of mine, came to visit me, and she looked out the window, and, I'm gazing out the window and just looking out the window, sort of like at nothing. And she said to me, there needs to be a mural on that window over there. On that wall. And I said, yeah. So then I came home. I didn't really think about it after that. So I was and she came, she lives pretty far from the city, almost an hour. She came, I would say, if I was in there 28 days, she came 20 days out of 28 days to see me. She came all the time. And she never mentioned it again. But then I came home, and before I had gone into the hospital, I had done a vision board for myself. And on the vision board was a mural. And I thought, holy crap, I think I'm supposed to do that mural. So I called my friend and I said, what do you think? And she said she had some connections with, and she knows some people at Mural Arts. And she said, let me propose it to them. And that's how it happened. So, so she was there. She sort of saw the opportunity. And here I am doing a mural. What can I say? And, I think the fact that I was a patient is, that is, for the Mural Arts people, I think that is sort of compelling. It's not just anybody doing it. And I'm not sort of guessing at what people might like. And, the reality is, I don't know if every patient wants to see flowers, but I know that they're not allowed to have flowers. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's not a bad thing. I don't think it will offend anyone. There's nothing about it that's going to be dark. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a good thing. That's my intention, is that it's a really good thing. And, and I think it's a Yiddish saying or a Hebrew saying, I'm not Jewish, so I'm not sure. But it's, if you change one man, you change the world. And that's what I have to think. Like, if I change one person's view of life, then I've changed the world, because he or she is going to walk out and their changed view is going to affect all the people that they know. And then all those people will be changed, and, it will just keep going and going. And so that's sort of how I really sort of view my artwork too, is that, I don't need to sell it to everyone. I need to sell it to some people so that they change their everyday life. And when they leave their homes, they go out and they interact with people differently because they live with a piece of my artwork.
Well, Michele, we're going to put some links to your artwork in the bottom of this interview so that anyone who watches this and is inspired just can get some of your pieces. Is that yours that's behind you?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. So I can see it's like a 3D sculpture. That's so beautiful. Right.
Yeah. So just so you know, in case my website is sort of in the process right now. So right before I got sick, I had switched over. So a bunch of years ago, I had a WordPress site, and I had been working with a coach, and she helped me build my WordPress site. And it was sort of like when I was in between deciding on being a floral designer and what my next move was. And my kids were like, it needed to be updated. And it was so, I think I did it in 2009 or 2008. And like, to update it, I was just going to have to redo it. And I had done that sort of inside of a class that was really how to make your own website class. And I sort of had lost touch with how to do all the stuff you need to do to run a website. So then I switched over to Squarespace, and I was sort of in the process of starting to figure that out when I got sick. And so I would say in the last month is when I've gone back to my website and started to relook at it. But I have to sort of relearn everything now. So right now I have there is a little bit of information and some photos. But if you follow me on Facebook, even if you follow me as a personal, I post most of my stuff on Facebook and on Instagram. So that's where you'll see most of my work. My website still needs to be a lot tuned up, not a little. And I have to get it done before this mural thing happens. But I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Michele, for being a part of this and for sharing this powerful story. I know it's going to inspire a lot of people. And I so appreciate having this conversation with you today. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So where are you? Where are you located?